Rescue and relief efforts are ramping up across South and Southeast Asia affected by devastating floods.
The death toll from 3 powerful storms now, more than 1,300 people. Indonesia and Sri Lanka among the hardest hit as rescue teams search for survivors and bodies.
While calls for accountability also growing with questions mounting over the scale of the disaster. Experts blame climate change. In Indonesia, environmentalists say the floods were made worse by deforestation.
For more on the challenges in dealing with the deluge we've seen in parts of Asia, let's speak with Puiwa Alice Ho. She's acting Deputy Regional Director, International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, Asia Pacific Regional Office. And she joins us from Kuala Lumpur. Alice, thanks for your time today. So what is the latest on the IFRC's response across Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Malaysia as well? Now we're getting reports more than 1,300 people confirmed dead, hundreds more missing. I mean, what are the biggest priorities right now for your organization?
Yes, so this is truly a regional humanitarian crisis. So as you said, millions of people across Southeast Asia, especially Thailand, Indonesia, Sri Lanka are affected. So we are providing everything we can to mobilize staff and volunteers to reach the last mile, to conduct search and rescue, to support in evacuation, providing medical care and support. So in view of the humanitarian situation, the IFRC is going to launch a 5 million Swiss francs emergency appeal to support Sri Lanka Red Cross in the immediate response phase. And at the same time, we are also mobilizing 1 million Swiss francs from our disaster emergency relief fund to support the local effort. Apart from Sri Lanka, like 600,000 Swiss francs also already mobilized to Vietnam to support the relief phase. The immediate needs that now definitely is food, safe drinking water, medical care, and emergency shelter. And we are seeing the needs are growing, so we're really trying to mobilize everything we can to reach to the last mile.
Alice, each of the 4 worst affected countries have slightly different terrain, they have slightly different infrastructure, slightly different stages of development as well, we can call it that. Which is giving you the biggest headache, the biggest challenge right now? Or do they each have their own unique challenges that they're presenting to the IFRC?
Yes, the unique challenges definitely is the capacity on the ground. Like for Sri Lanka, it is the worst devastating disaster over the decades. So that's why the government is requesting for international assistance. But similarly, towards all those countries, logistic challenges is still remain a bigger hurdle because the roads is destroyed and some infrastructure also disrupted. So it's quite difficult for us to reach to the most isolated families. So now we are using boats and air for transportations, but this definitely slow down our operations. The other thing I wanted to mention is, especially this year, we see a declined funding from major donors for the humanitarian aid. So we foresee that even though we launch an appeal, but we might not be able to receive sufficient funding to respond that scale of emergencies.
Right, Alice. And how are you coping with that? You know, this lack of funding, and also just to follow up on some of the points you made earlier. I mean, there were obviously some logistical barriers given the damaged roads and damaged infrastructure. And so if you could just share a little bit more on how you were trying to reach these more isolated communities. And also at the same time, you also talked about, you know, food, not enough food, water. So definitely there are risks there in terms of sanitation, waterborne diseases as well.
Yes, as you rightly said, with this scale of flooding, water can easily contaminate it. So one of the critical thing that we're going to do is diseases control. And for the Red Cross Red Crescent, we have a wide base of volunteers in the community level where they know the terrain, they know the communities very well. So this is really a good access for us to mobilize them to support the most needed. At the same time, we are also coordinating with local authorities and also some of the international organizations that will support the Red Cross actions for immediate response.
Alice, there have been warnings, and I'm not suggesting that they were ignored, but judging from the rising death toll and the response, officials appear to have been caught off guard. Which elements were much worse than expected in your view? I mean, was it infrastructure that was weaker than expected, vulnerable areas? We hear a lot about them, more vulnerable than thought. Or was it just the sheer unpredictability of the weather pattern? I don't think we can call it a pattern even anymore.
Yes, exactly. So we're deeply concerned about the climate change because there's already a lot of evidence show that extreme weather events are happening very frequently and intensive. So with stronger cyclones, typhoons, and widespread flooding hitting the same area over and over. And we cannot say that it's one in a lifetime event. I'm afraid that it's become annual. So what the Red Cross is currently doing is put a lot of effort and energy in disaster preparedness and readiness to support the community just to build a very stronger housing to withstand to the next storm and to increase some preparedness such as planting mangroves in low-lying areas and develop a stronger local disaster response plan. For us, training the local volunteers as a local actor is also critical because they are the first responder to respond to the emergency immediately. So this is not the rocket science activity. So we are really doing a lot in supporting those vulnerable communities to build more their resilience.
Yeah, Alice, there are also reports that this devastation is caused by an unusual confluence of 3 tropical systems. And so what is making this cluster of storms so particularly destructive? And I'm also seeing reports that in Indonesia's Batang Toru region, officials and activists, they suggest illegal logging actually worsened this disaster. I mean, is this consistent with your findings as well?
So currently, our team is doing the need assessment on the ground. So we will know the definite, the destructions and, what else we need to prioritize in supporting the local community. And at the same time, definitely, we are coordinating very closely with the local authority to respond. And it's not only for the short term. So we are also activating a longer term plan to find a durable solutions to increase the resilience of those communities. One of the critical things is I really want to highlight is the early warning action. That if we link it up with the meteorological department in such countries, so if we can provide early warning to those communities, so they can be, swiftly evacuated once we have a signal of typhoon coming.
Alice, you've touched on how the IFRC and other agencies are trying to prepare in some ways for the great unknown. I think you talked about early warning systems, local action, a more proactive strategy, basically. I think you have some of the funding available, but I'm not sure you have the time before the next storm, or the next monsoon season, comes along. So I'm wondering, what are your most urgent priorities right now in the short term?
You already said we are really chasing about the time, but fortunately that we have already started those adaptation and early warning anticipatory actions quite early already. So we will keep doing it, especially for those places are not affected. But we also foresee that there is, monsoon season, typhoon season coming up for several countries. So we keep doing it. And in the short term, raising awareness for our donors and international communities is also critical for us to advocate for more funding to support the most vulnerable and raise the alarm of climate change is really here. We really need to take the actions immediately.
Alice, we thank you so much for talking to us on Asia First this morning. Puiwa Alice Ho is Acting Deputy Regional Director at the IFRC Asia Pacific Regional Office.